Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and in this episode, we'll be discussing the Sarah Boone trial. Boone the Loon is on trial for murdering her fiancé, George Torres, by zipping him inside a suitcase and leaving him there overnight. I posted a video last week that outlines the case, and I'll link it in the description. I will be sharing a disturbing video that shows George in the suitcase begging to be let out, and another video that shows Sarah using abusive language towards George. If these things could be triggering for you, you might want to give this episode a miss. Sarah Boone's trial began on October 17th and is actually close to being over. The trial was scheduled for the possibility of running 3 weeks, and it looks like it will be over in a little over 1 week. Sarah and her attorneys are claiming self-defense in the death of George. The story is that George and Sarah were playing hide-and-seek that night, and when he first got in the suitcase, it was all fun and games. But then, according to Sarah, George began to get angry, and she was too scared to let him out. Oddly enough, Sarah, who had called the police multiple times before when she and George were fighting, didn't think to call the police that night. Also, if someone had me zipped in a suitcase and wouldn't let me out, I'd probably be just a bit miffed too. However, the video that Sarah took of George in the suitcase shows no anger coming from George. Before we get into talking about the trial, let me just say that the presiding judge, Michael Kranick, is exceptional. I think every courtroom should follow his lead in how to rule over a trial. He is calm, in control, direct, patient, and he says bless you every time someone in the courtroom sneezes, and that just makes me want to hug him. He has had to school the defense on law and courtroom procedure and has done so with much more grace than I would, because I think the defense attorneys are idiots. I realized they only had about 40 to 45 days to prepare for the trial, but they knew what they were getting into when they accepted the case. They were fully aware that the court date had been set and that their client had already been through 8 attorneys. Now that I think about it, I think maybe they're the perfect match. They're just a couple of nutty buddies. On day 1, during their opening statement, the prosecution wasn't allowed to show the video of George in the suitcase, but they did give a recitation of it. Here is the video they referred to that shows George in the suitcase begging Sarah to let him out while she is mocking him, cussing at him, and generally being a horrible person to him.
For everything you've done to me. Sarah. For everything you've done to me. Sarah. Fuck you. Sarah. Fuck you. Sarah. Stupid. Sarah. This is my name. Don't wear it on. Sarah, I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah. 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 Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. It's on you. Sarah. Real or ransom. Might want to give it for it extra. Because I got this. Sarah. Real or ransom. Sarah. I can't breathe, babe. Oh. That's what I feel like when you chewing on me. Sarah. Fuck you. I can't breathe, Sarah. Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up. Sarah.
It really doesn't seem as though Sarah was scared of George, and it sounds like George wasn't angry, but was scared. In the defense's opening statement, they decided to play both sides, arguing that Sarah didn't intentionally kill George, but also that she put him in the suitcase to defend herself from being abused. If it was the latter, it was intentional. I guess when you don't really have a case, you can say that it was both unintentional and intentional just to cover all your bases. I'm not sure why they ever thought that self-defense was a good route to take, considering that Sarah has admitted that when George first got in the suitcase, they were being playful and laughing. Is she trying to say that she was having to defend herself from all the fun they were having? Was it just so much fun that Sarah couldn't deal with it? 2 of Sarah's former neighbors testified that they both heard what sounded like something large going down the stairs in Sarah's apartment the night George died. They both stated that whatever it was, it shook the walls in their apartment. When this story first broke, I remember hearing that Sarah had pushed George down the stairs while he was in the suitcase. Then that sort of disappeared until the former neighbors testified. The prosecution sailed through 8 other witnesses on the first day. The attorneys were concise, the witnesses were concise. The prosecution obviously had their case put together very neatly. The state actually wrapped up their case on the second day and ended by showing the jury the interrogation of Sarah, where she yelled at the detectives that killing George wasn't intentional. She also told the detectives, quote, "You don't know who I am. I was always a straight-A student. I excel at everything," end quote. This woman is in her 40s, and she's talking about the grades she got in high school. Well, Sarah, I was a cheerleader in high school, but my chonky self would end up in the emergency room if I even attempted a somersault these days. On day 3, the judge ruled that Sarah's attorneys could argue self-defense because Florida law is dumb, and it dictates that it only takes a scintilla of evidence of an overt act by George in order to argue self-defense. In this case, the overt act wasn't named, but it could have been something as small as George being able to stick 2 fingers outside of the suitcase. Sarah testified in her defense, which I think was a mistake. When asked about the events of the night, she said the following about her thoughts after George was in the suitcase. Quote, "I went over and decided to videotape to see the jest in it, for him to understand that right now I feel safe, and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to," end quote. And we'll come back to this absolutely ridiculous claim that Sarah seems to have yanked from her backside and just thrown out into the courtroom. On day 4, the majority of the witnesses for the defense were law enforcement simply corroborating that they had indeed been called out to Sarah's apartment multiple times for domestic disturbances. There was one witness who stood out to me. It was an elderly woman who was one of Sarah's neighbors. I think the defense was trying to elicit from her that she had witnessed George being abusive to Sarah, but they didn't quite get there. On cross-examination, the prosecution asked her when she saw Sarah with black eyes and bruises, and her response was, "When she walked past my patio." The state clarified that they meant what dates she had seen it, and she responded that she didn't know because her memory wasn't that good. That's what you want to hear from a witness that is supposed to be testifying on your behalf, that they have a terrible memory. The defense also called a psychologist who had interviewed Sarah, and I wish I could tell you what she said, but I couldn't listen to her because of the sticky mouth sounds she kept making. You remember the paste that we had back in the day that was thick and had a plastic stick applicator and smelled kind of like a stick of peppermint gum that had been in the bottom of your grandma's purse for a couple of months? It sounded like the psychologist had eaten an entire tub of that paste before getting up to testify. Day 5 is when the trial devolved into more sidebars than testimony. The state began their rebuttal arguments on this day, and they were questioning a psychiatrist who had interviewed Sarah. The defense claimed that the witness testified to something different that she had put in her pretrial deposition about Sarah having PTSD. The psychiatrist ended up sitting through sidebars and objections way more than she actually testified. All of the objections from the defense ended up not helping their case because the state was able to ask the psychiatrist if she thought that battered spouse syndrome came into play in George's death, and she replied that it didn't. And remember how on day 3, Sarah said that right now I feel safe and right now I have the ability to actually speak to you in a manner that normally I would not have the ability to? Here's a video that the state presented as part of the rebuttal argument, and it doesn't do Sarah any favors.
So you remember this. Are you drunk right now?
No, man.
How much alcohol did you drink?
Enough to be drunk.
You're slurring your words. You're sleeping up against the door right now.
Yeah, because I want to be next to you.
Did I not tell you to not bother me?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is it you come up and do? What time is it right now? It's 1:20 a.m.
Okay. I haven't bothered you since then. I just go to sleep.
But didn't I tell you before at 9:30 to not bother me at all?
Yes.
Because why?
You have to move too long.
Nope. Because I've been up since 4 a.m. since yesterday when you fucked with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I know how much vodka was in that bottle. And what's the bottle now?
Kind of to throw it out.
What does that mean?
One more drink.
The bottle's empty. I know how much vodka was in there. Enough for two people to have a really good time. And who drank it? I want it to be documented that I'm leaving you, which means that you're getting out. You're getting out. You're getting out.
Nobody's leaving nobody. Stop. I haven't done nothing.
And the reason why you were even downstairs and weak enough to get drunk was because you don't give a shit about me. You don't listen to what I say. Special things that I keep on my front page of my phone so I remember to tell you about it because of how special and fun it is. I always bother you. I always bore you. You don't listen to me. Yesterday was my first day of work, remember? And I ended up 90% hearing about your day and 10% about mine.
You don't bother me or anything without talking. Sometimes you just you overwhelm me. That's the problem. You overwhelm me.
I tell you about my first day of work.
No, dude, you just overwhelm me about every other thing too. Not just first day of work.
So I'm overwhelming you by telling you about the fourth highest paid baseball player. That's a client of ours.
I'm not starstruck.
I don't even know who the guy is.
I don't need.
So the reason why, so you fully admit now that you didn't care and you did brush me off in the car. Midway sentence. Because you're not into baseball.
No, I didn't do that. I'm just saying.
I want to go to sleep. Go downstairs.
I know.
I'm leaving you. And I'm going to try and cancel plane tickets.
No.
Because I don't do special things for people like you that are doing this, like, to me, after I asked you at 1:21 in the morning.
I'm not doing it.
I wanted to be asleep. I wanted to stay asleep, which is why I got into bed at 8:30.
I know, I'm not doing it.
I told you not to step foot in the bedroom. So what do? Nonetheless, you're drunk. The amount of alcohol, I know how much was alcohol. I know how much was in there. That's why I could smell you in the bed before you actually got me up. I can smell you from here. You're despicable.
I'm not despicable. I'm not even doing anything.
Leave me alone.
Okay?
You're not going to remember shit. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not doing nothing right now.
Get away from me. Get away from me.
I'm not doing
do everything to me all the time. All the time. Heartache and pain is what you cause me. Heartache and pain.
How is that?
Keep going. And I dare you. I dare you. I dare you. You get on your fucking little bike and go to fuck you work tomorrow. Don't look at me. Don't come close to me. Don't touch me. Do you understand?
What do you mean?
As of this moment, and until I can get you out,
Get the fuck out of here.
I dare you. Yep, look at it. Wait, get away from me. Get away from me. Get away from me. I'm gonna scream bloody murder. I'm gonna scream bloody murder. I will scream bloody murder. Get away from me.
Dude, nobody's doing anything.
I'm gonna fucking hurt you.
Nobody's doing anything. And you're filming it.
Let me go.
Nobody's doing anything.
I'm asking you, George, to get away from me. Please get away from me. Get away from me.
Yeah, I am. That was your function, dude. Malfunction. No, your malfunction is you, dude.
Okay, whatever you say. Whatever you say. Holy shit, the whole hallway just reeks of you up here. First it's shit, now it's alcohol. Don't step foot in this bedroom. I can't even breathe. Like, it's disgusting. Like, it's disgusting.
Keep filming with this fucking way. Good night, Sarah. Love you.
I don't love you. I don't like you. I don't want to be with you.
So that bit about Sarah only being able to talk to George in a manner that she wouldn't normally have the ability to, unless he was zipped in a suitcase, was a big fat lie. Sarah does not sound like someone who is afraid of George in this video. In fact, she sounds like the aggressor and the abuser. There was a brief minute or so of George coming after her, but he didn't hit her. He did have a hold of her wrist, and as soon as she told him not to touch her, he let go. When Sarah testified, she tried to sound so meek and quiet, but I think the real Sarah shows in the videos presented in court. I think there were times that George fought back, but I think Sarah was the aggressor. By day 6, closing arguments were heard. As of this recording, they are still being heard by the defense, and the defense attorney James Owen is droning on and rifling through papers. I have never seen a person so rabid about shuffling through paperwork, and he could never find what he's looking for. Earlier in the day, it seemed like James was trying to get out of presenting his closing argument for the day. He was trying to get it pushed to Monday. After watching him for only 5 minutes, I realized why he'd want it postponed. I don't think he was prepared at all, especially when he blurted out, "It's 2024, not the 1800s," apropos of nothing. I think they should have just grabbed someone from the hall to present the closing arguments. In the words of Dorothy Parker, this wasn't just plain terrible, this was fancy terrible. This was terrible with raisins in it. I'll post an update when the verdict comes in. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, become a member, and do a somersault, as this helps my channel grow. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.